some people raise concerns about things like if some baby swings are taken away. So I think at the moment there's 4 baby swings and they're going to have only 2, which it doesn't sound like very much, but at the moment, at peak times, you have to wait to use baby swings, and also there's lack of seating and things like that in the play park, and it's to make sure that was something. I did some feedback questionnaires, and that was one of the things that are high up on the list that is to be considered. So it was just to raise that really for the council to make people aware of it, and hope that will be considered in the play park plans.
Okay, brilliant, thank you so much.
Okay.
Tom and Roger, would you like to respond?
Yeah, Roger Higgins. Yeah, thank you, Rosie. From memory, I thought we actually had 4 infant swings and 2 of the larger ones, but in the drawing that's come through, you're quite right, it's flipped to being 2 infant ones and 4 larger adult ones, so we need to check that. The problem is that at the present there's like 4 and 4, and there's not really space to maintain that exact provision because we're putting in a lot of new items that aren't there at present, so something's got to give. So whether it's 3 infant ones and 3 adult ones, or 2, well not adult, but 2 larger ones and 4 infant ones, you have a bit of a think, because I don't think it's not too late to change that, but I don't think realistically we can't fit any extra length of swing in because it's pretty packed. Getting several new items, and seating isn't fully set out in the current drawing, but we're fully aware that things like that raised kind of dais that the rotating things sitting on, people do sit around it informally, and we do need to. That's going to go because it's in such a state, and we do need to put some alternative provision in. And that was going to be met separately from that drawing, so there will be some seats going in, yeah, so we're fully aware of that. Is that about right, Tom?
That's good.
Yeah. So perhaps jot a line to Andrew with specific concerns, but certainly the seating one is an easy change, but really it's within that parameter of 6 seats. How you tell us which way you'd like it cut, please.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think the main thing is, rather than me put that feedback, it's to get feedback from community, and then.
Can I just
have we got what sort of time?
Well, we're supposed to be starting work on it at the end of the month. We've got a site meeting later on this week. I think there's scope to do some flex possibly. Certainly the seating is one that we normally need to do something about, and that's been discussed. I wasn't aware of the issues with the swings, but it's certainly something we can ask them about, and we can take that feedback on board and see what we can do in response. Because I mean, if that's something that's needed, then that's something that's needed.
Thank you. So, Stephen?
answer the question there, some delegated responsibility?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For this,
all been delegated.
Because we don't want to wait till the next council meeting and they've already started.
No, the work stops.
And I believe there's some flexibility within our budget to accommodate such things, certainly extra seating. And I quite admire you coming here tonight because I'm aware of people coming to you as a conduit. So it's really important that you have something positive to report back that you've been to the meeting and that it's been looked at before it actually starts. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you so much. Thank you. Do we have anybody else?
Yes, please.
Yes, please come
Thank
forward.
you, Matthew Greening. I'm here tonight as a member of Love Our Time group. So you won't be surprised as soon as I say that to know that I just wanted to say a brief comment about item 8 on the agenda. If you've read it and thought, what strange river of wokery is this we're getting into now, then I'd be disappointed because I think you're more wise than that. However, you won't be showing your hands yet because you have the paper presented and think about it in a perhaps fuller way. The point I wanted to make was this. Please, if you haven't yet, just suspend your current thinking about our approach to rivers and their management. use your wisdom to recognise that maybe the current thinking has got us in a mess we're in now, and a different approach might give us a very different result. I think the logic around what it means to be alive and to have rights is quite a tough one perhaps to stretch your thinking to and think how could this be applied to something differently, but John will go through the paper with you. I just wanted to have my support for the paper and to implore you to have that broader thinking and say maybe there is something here we should think differently and get a different outcome. And if you chose to, you would be at the vanguard of what's happening in Tynedale and the vanguard of what's happening in Northumberland and nationally. And it could be a great step for the council to take if you felt it appropriate. Thank you.
Thanks,
I'm here to listen to this.
very good. Right. Okay. Right. So that's item 1 and item 2 completed, and we'll do item 3. Apologies for absence. None. That's good. We'll make sure we'll do item 4. Disclosures of interest. Any disclosures? No. Thank you. Any dispensations? No. Right. Now we're now going to go to item number 7 at last. At last. Oh, are you all set? Are you going to stand? Or?
Yes, yeah.
We'll just.
Can everyone see the screen if we're standing about here?
Yeah.
Okay. Come forward. Yeah. Over to you.
Cool. Hello everyone. So nice to see everyone today. Firstly, we'd like to give a massive thank you to both Andrew and Penny for the opportunity to speak here, but also to engage with this project in the first place. We're really excited to share with you all today what we've been working on over the past 6 months. To give you a bit of a background, we are 8 students from Newcastle University Business School. We study a variety of courses, but we've all come together after expressing an interest within the arts and within the project within Hexham as well. Today we have myself, Theo, Katie, Sam and Mo presenting, but we've also got Eiley, Jake and Millie here for the discussion and Q&A that we hope to have kind of at the end of the presentation. To give you a brief overview of kind of the presentation today, we'll first take you through an overview of our project, kind of the aims behind that, followed by our research journey, what we've been getting up to within the town, then presenting our findings from our research, and then also going through some of the recommendations that we've been crafting for you guys at the council. Again, we hope to have a nice bit of discussion at the end, a bit of feedback. So now I'd like to hand over to Theo, who's going to take you through an overview of our project.
Thank you. This is the project overview. So overall, this project has had the aim of exploring how art can be used to achieve. Thank you. I'm sorry. I thought you were pulling that down. Exploring how art can be used to achieve holistic community engagement within Hexham. We've taken a mixed method approach here, and we've really wanted to make sure that we were collecting a breadth of data to analyse. So this exploration, as I just said, was conducted using mixed method, which incorporates both secondary and primary research. And Faye, you've been part of the primary research, so thank you to you. And this approach has allowed us to collect multiple perspectives and added important credibility to the outcomes of our work. Moving on to our research journey, we start with secondary research, where over the last 6 months, we've conducted secondary research on over 160 sources. We've also analysed previously collected data from Hexham Town Council, which some of you I'm sure will know about, where there was 3 community engagement sessions in which there was a collation of post-it notes around the topic of the arts. And as well as that, we've conducted a situational analysis on Hexham's town itself, which has provided us with necessary understanding of the socio-economic and demographic context of the town. Something we're all particularly proud of is the fact that we've collected research from 17 different areas across the globe, including the UK, Europe and the USA. Most of this was during our time learning from comparable cultural areas, with interviews taking place online with people from America, Europe, and obviously England. Highlighted on the map there are the areas in which members of the team had the amazing opportunity to interview representatives from these areas, and that was a part of the primary research that Katie will now present in further detail.
Thank you.
So we started with primary research, where we did exploratory research, where we came to your guys' Christmas light switch on and the Christmas market. We spoke to residents just about their thoughts and perceptions on the arts to kind of create a feel of where we wanted to go with the direction. We did an online survey which was distributed through your Facebook groups and in person on posters. Some of you may have seen our pretty posters around the town, helpfully distributed by Penny. And we got a really good 45 responses in the space of 2 weeks, so that really helped. We did some interviews with some local businesses and some stakeholders around Hexham, where we could not only get residents' perspective on the arts, but also businesses and how that can affect them and the benefits for them. And then, as Theo spoke about, we did interviews with some comparative areas around the globe, including the USA and the UK. And now I'll pass over to Sam to talk about what we found.
So I'm just going to take you through the key findings we've got from our research so far. Just before I go into nitty-picking on what can be improved, I do think it's worth saying that the current engagement around the arts in Hexham is of a very high standard and quality. As you can see, over 70% of respondents from our online survey had been to an art event either monthly or seasonally. So that shows quite an active participation, especially as you know with the current Hexham events. They're not always weekly and stuff, so that's very high. And also 80% from the same online survey agreed with the statement that Hexham offers a lot of ways to actually enjoy the arts. So there's that knowledge that there's art for people to engage with, and that Hexham is known for that a little bit in the community, which is good. But of course, we're here to try and help improve community engagement as much as we can. So we identified 5 key themes. I'm going to go through these one by one. Sorry, I do apologise. There's quite a lot of information to distill here, so I am trying my best. But if there's any points that you lose track, we'll have a discussion afterwards that you can ask questions. So awareness. This is probably our biggest umbrella of a finding. We found an overall general lack of awareness in regards to visibility for events and finding information on them. The event scheduling, so the consistency of when events are, and finally promotion and advertisement in the area for these events as well. Community networks and communication networks. So this sort of entails that when we spoke to a lot of arts businesses, a lot of them mentioned that they weren't necessarily happy with the current communication channels and the current structure that they're seeing between them and the council. Some suggested, as you can see on the board, that they don't think there's a clear channel and maybe one central figure that they know they can talk to, because they're saying that they don't really know who to go to if they've got a query or they want something advertised, or if they want to get more involved. We are aware that Hexham website, the Hexham Town Council website, does have an events and project section, but when we kind of done a bit of deeper research into it, we found that it can be a bit outdated and isn't always kept up to speed with the most amount of information as people require. So this turns to, you'll all be in the Hexham Matters Facebook group, I assume, so you'll see there'll be a couple of posts in them sort of unofficial channels for the arts, and stuff can get lost in the ether there. So I think that there's been a couple of instances where people are wanting more a central hub for that communication. And finally, I think it's important to mention that lack of information was the joint most prominent difficulty for people to actually engage in arts activities. So overall, I think the communication channels are a big finding regarding an area for improvement. Aside from awareness and lack of information, time was a very key constraint for people trying to get involved, whether this was the timing of events when they're scheduled to be, or some people, especially the arts businesses, a lot of these are one-man or one-woman shows, and they don't have a lot of time to be able to try and reach out to Hexham Town Council to try and get more involved in the arts project. So time was seen as quite a significant barrier, and so was cost as well. It's important to mention cost, especially when we're trying to engage people from lower socio-economic backgrounds. Cost was obviously it was a smaller but still it was still there. There was still got that feedback from our online survey that people did find cost a barrier. Interestingly though, I think it's worth mentioning that it isn't just residents to organisers. That isn't the only way that there's a barrier. There's barriers from organisers as well trying to go through. We understand through the research we've done on the comparative areas, especially in the UK, I do feel for councils because the funding's not there, not at the moment, especially for stuff like arts that gets knocked down the pecking order. So, you know, a lot of the towns that we've spoken to have talked a lot about funding, especially when we're trying to run more events and engage wider and more people. So it's important to recognise that organisers themselves have these financial constraints and also demographics. You know, Hexham, situational analysis pointed to the fact that Hexham has a slightly older and more retired population than the rest of the UK, and a slightly lower young adults to teenage population. So this means when we're trying to do a holistic engagement of the arts, it's difficult to try and find demand and run kind of more contemporary arts projects when potentially the amount of people there wouldn't justify it. So it's very difficult to try and find that balance. And this is a more of a you know, a non-tangible finding that we found was around cultural perceptions. I think one thing that I will mention is before this project, I wasn't an arts person. I wouldn't have ever defined myself as someone who bothers with the arts, engages with the arts, but after going through this research and speaking to people who are involved in the arts, I've realised that it's all-encompassing. People, whether you know it or not, whether you think you are or you think you're not, you will have engaged with arts probably today. You will have engaged and been involved looking at something with the arts. So I think that's a really important message that we've received from a lot of arts businesses and key stakeholders, that message that, you know, the arts, it isn't elitist. Some stakeholders believe that some people in the town might think it is the art are elitist. And I think it's important that knowing that no matter what you interact with it every day could probably break down those barriers, and that'll be important to make people feel welcome. And finally, events management. I think this is going to link back to my point about the consistency of events. As you see, almost 41% of people who answered our online survey attend arts events seasonally. Now that is quite good, but at the same time, seasonally, a lot of the towns we spoke to, they try and do events every 6 weeks. I'm sure you've all looked at the Hexham events calendar and you've seen that all the arts events are very much all situated in the last quarter. So it's important to try and maybe spread those out to sustain a more habitual routine engagement with the arts. So I think that's something that's very much worth looking at. So I'm now going to hand on to Mo, who will go through the recommendations that we've got from these findings.
Thank you, Sele. So we've consolidated our findings into 3 key themes. Our first theme and our first recommendation is marketing. So we want to strengthen Hexham's digital presence through a dedicated website and social media strategy, utilising every social media, TikTok, Instagram, to really drive through to that younger audience as well. This will promote events, workshops and heritage activities, which we need to play into as well. And this will present the arts as part of everyday community life. This will help increase awareness, but also reduce perceptions that the arts are inaccessible. Our second recommendation is, community management, or the coordinated arts communication. So with this, we have a central communication hub, which is a website. It's very similar to what the marketing strategy is for the website. This specifically is for relaying information out and having it accessible to all stakeholders in the arts. This will be supported by an actual council arts representative. They will be serving the purpose of that central mechanism to communicate that information in and out. This will create a more transparent and accessible system for all the stakeholders, and this will reduce information asymmetry where people cannot find information they need regarding partnerships, whatever it may be, and even directory of artists where businesses can go and look on the websites and communicate with other businesses, making it a much more centralized structure, better for everybody. And our third recommendation is the events management. So as Sam said, our findings highlighted the demand for consistent arts and activity throughout the year. So expanding the events calendar and developing partnerships with independent businesses and artists, schools, and establishing a structured volunteer group. This will all help increase participation as well and engagement from all stakeholders. So what we do want to note as well is that our recommendations are not finalised at the minute. This is our current direction, and our report will be available to Annie and Pendry in the coming weeks, and we really do hope that this information and our report will be of great help to you in the coming years. So we welcome any discussion or questions that you do have.
Okay, I think the big done. So what we'll do now, will you have one person responding, or are we just going to?
I think, yeah, each of us all worked on different aspects of the project, so if anything comes up that either of us want to jump to, then...
Yeah. Okay, right, we'll do that. If, so we'll get a question. If one or two of you need to stand up, please stand up and just so you can communicate. So I'll bring in Faith. Thank you.
Firstly, mine's not really a question, but I was involved with the one of the interviews, and I'd just like to say what an amazingly brilliant job you guys have done, because we were just talking again, it's a really difficult thing to do, and you've been very professional. This tonight has been absolutely superb, so fantastic, well done, really, really good. Thank you very much.
Okay, Steve.
Again, I'm echoing everybody's thoughts. Congratulations on what you've done. It's a starting point. We've all prided ourselves within Hexham that this is a great place to live, and that's a huge advantage to start with. And there's lots of great community things going on. We've got some key areas. Queen's Hall is one as a centre, the cinema, the community centre, even bridge clubs and art clubs in the community centre. In the recommendations that you've made, it talks about a dedicated website, and to me, who's responsible for that? Are you saying to the town council, which I think is not a bad thing? Will you take responsibility for this? Will you provide the funding for it, the seed corps funding, to have a separate website? Other towns that I'm aware of have like a what's on scenario, what's on this week, and even the Hexham Courant, for all its faults, could list that going forward. But I'm wanting to know what the end result would be in terms of these are what we think somebody should do. The question is, who do you think should do it?
Yeah, so sorry, before we answer, would it be easier for us to all come to the centre?
Just start with the response.
Are you sure? Okay, do you want me to take it? So thank you for your question, especially with the website. I think one thing, as Mo said, it isn't all finalised, and that has been a point of discussion that we're still going with, whether this is going to be an independent website or already probably collated into the Hexham Town Council website as like a drop down in like an Arts Town section that's ran more consistently and effectively. Arts Towns have done it both ways. For example, Paducah in Kentucky, they have their own one dedicated to the fact that they're a UNESCO creative city, and that's separate to their their council website where you can you can pay your bills, etc., etc. But there are others that have kind of like ingrained it in their existing websites, because obviously websites it is a cost for you, and as I mentioned there, the funding and council funds at the moment, they are low, so across the UK, I mean UK wide. So I think when you're talking about the website and the end goal, I think it would be council managed. That was when we spoke about a central arts figure or a communication team. I think that's been something that's been very important to people, that they don't know who to go to when they want to get involved. They don't know who to turn to and what to ask and how it's done. So I think having that one central figure, a communication, an arts communication team that will be dedicated to posting on the website, social media, and running it effectively so that people can go to that website for further information as like a centralised hub, rather than having to grab from leaflets, posters, Facebook groups, to kind of, it's all in one place. That's sort of the end goal, that everything's in one place, people know about it, people know they can go there for accurate and well made out information. Does that answer your question?
Very good, thank you.
Really good presentation, so thanks for that. My question would be, obviously you've kind of done research, and I've worked for a long time in IT. One of the issues that obviously you've mentioned our demographic in Hexham, which is quite old people, and old people just don't use tech. But there's also a segment when I've been looking at where there's odd segments in the young 18 to 24 year olds sometimes don't have a mobile phone. So part of this would be, we can potentially have a fantastic website, but how do we cater for those that can't use the tech, whether they're young or old? You might not be able to answer that now, but it's worth having a look at, because that's a common complaint that I get when I put an IT system in. That's all well and great, but what about for those that can't use IT?
So what you'd be able to see when our full report comes out, so we go a bit more into the whole marketing side of it. So alongside a website, we also then have a separate section for kind of physical media, and doing the same kind of mirroring, the same branding, the same identity, but across the town, and trying to get engagement from those who maybe aren't online. So going to notice boards, distributed, physical. Does that answer it?
Thank you so much.
Just to build on that, I know we were just talking to Andrew today when we had a meeting about the relatively low cost of getting a leaflet out across the entire town. It's about £450, wasn't it? Which, getting something on a quarterly basis could be a good way to get things through people's doors, to kind of make people just want to kind of have something physical to hold. Just a question as well from you guys is kind of young people. You might have noticed in Hexham, Mike kind of alluded to it, there's a kind of missing middle. There's lots of kids, they get to 18, they all leave, and then they kind of come back like I did, around about 30 up to 40. So I guess I wouldn't want it to be a town for young people necessarily in terms of like keep them here for the sake of it, but one of the things that's quite special about the town is that people do come back for cultural events, like Bonfire Night is really big here. And I was just wondering from your perspective, what are the kind of things that you would want to see in a town to kind of attract you to want to visit it or to live here?
It's a hard one to answer, but it's funny when you mention Bonfire Night, where I'm from, everyone goes back for Bonfire Night as well. But I think really it's those big cultural things you grow up with. I think it's growing up with them which builds, like, when you go home for Bonfire Night, that's your community, and it's more than a town. You know everyone, there's people you haven't seen in years maybe, and everyone's together. So I don't think it's specific things you could put in, it's building them, it's the time of them when they're established from a long time. Bonfire Night, I don't know how long you guys have had one established here, but the village I live in at home, I moved there when I was 1.5. Yeah. I've gone to every single one, and I'm 21 now, apart from when there was COVID and there wasn't. And even, it's about that building it in. And I know that's obviously, it's a bit easier to say, oh, you need to distill things from people when they're young, but it's almost giving it meaning. It's not the event itself, because things change as well, especially if you want it from a young person's perspective. Bonfire Night on paper isn't like, there's not much jumping out on you. I think it's the fact that from before I could even properly walk and talk, that's something I've done. So any event in that, it builds the meaning of community. Mm-hmm. That's my take on it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No,
I was going to add that, kind of going back to our finding about consistency, bringing in that more consistent events calendar, I think that will build the tradition factor in terms of pulling people back in on a 3-month, 6-month basis, so they're coming back from working out of town, and that's where they're kind of feeling their community. But also, kind of as young people ourselves, I think music is a massive thing at the moment, and we spoke to Haslam's of Hallgate, and they have this great kind of music venue downstairs, so it's trying to work with what you guys have got within the town, but trying to put a modern twist on things. And I think music is definitely something that pulls us to all sorts of different events. So that kind of might be a good starting point.
So I might get just quick, I won't take long. Just because exactly what you said there, me and Ali were interviewing a town called Abingdon in Virginia, and they have the exact same sort of story. They say people stay here, 18, 20, they go to the bigger cities, try to find jobs, try to find bigger opportunities, and then they come back when they're older, they settle down, and that's basically what you alluded to in Hexham. And I think that the key thing, especially for people coming back, is that, especially with what Ray said with music, it's, memories from when you were young. There's the heritage of the town, the culture of Hexham, all that was. I've done that forever. I'll kind of come back to it. And another interesting thing, again, like places like Haslam's and Holgate that have these spaces, lots of spaces where stuff can happen. It's about using those to their maximum effect. So the reason I bring up Abingdon is they have a farmers market. They have like this big farmers market. Everyone loves it, but it's all outdoors. So in the winter, they get quite harsh. They're near the Appalachian. So it gets very cold in the winter. So it's not usable. So what they've started to do is especially with the farmers market, bring fresh stuff, especially when it's really cold. It's just not doable. So instead, they've used that free space that they've got, kind of converted it a bit indoor, put some canopies up and whatnot, and they've made it like a retro vinyl record store. Because one thing from our perspectives is retro is quite in at the moment. Everyone likes the retro gear, stuff from like the 1980s sort of vibe. So using that as a way to sort of target people is. I use retro lightly on that one.
Retro to us. You
So using spaces as a way of we can do this as well. Rather than just let it go, redundant for a bit. That's very useful for kind of maintaining that consistent engagement. So that's just all.
And
I agree. It's about building on what we've got. Rituals, I think, are super important. Community is important. So anything that brings those together, the arts are sort of pivotal in that. My one fear is this kind of, what I love about the art, I work in the arts, but what I love about the arts is it's so varied. It's such a rich tapestry of highbrow, lowbrow, whatever you want to label it, and all the different genres within the arts. And the idea of one spokesperson for that, it fills me with horror, I have to say, this sort of homogenised approach to the arts itself. I don't know, maybe I'm reading it wrong, but I'm not sure I kind of like it hung on one person's coat peg. But obviously, anything to up the engagement. The thing about the arts is they are perceived as elite, and the middle classes do engage with them more, almost double, I think, the percentages are for some of the arts like theatre, opera, whatever. The middle classes are much more engaged, and we live in a very sort of middle class town on the whole, we are very lucky to be engaged with the arts and our theatre and cinema. And certainly a lot of people think, for example, poetry is quite elite. And I think Adrian Mitchell, the Shadow Laureate, once said, most people ignore poetry because most poetry ignores most people. And I thought, actually it does. And it is this question of kind of levelling it and opening it up to people without inflicting it on them. Saying that, we put a bench in town last week and it had lines of poetry on it, and we were a bit worried it was going to be just laughed at. And it's not. The engagements, I've never seen such engagement of the scale. It's been fantastic. People are reading poetry, people are sitting there. So it is about putting it very much in the community, and whether that's tied to a bench or tied to a ritual. I think, you've sort of cracked it. We've got to build on what we've got without making it too contained. But I love the work that you've been doing. It's absolutely fabulous. So thank you, and well done.
one more, Stephen.
If you were advising the town council and you wanted to put a rocket up us, Tell us what to do. I mean, I was involved with public arts things in like mining towns in West Yorkshire. You know, absolutely took off. Last place in the world, you think public art would be. Is that something we should engage in? Is there something that we can do with the universities? That enthusiasm and energy that comes from young people? Should we be trying to connect with the universities? Should we be looking at venues? There's a place next to the train station that's empty, you know. Is there something that we could do there? But if you was to advise us and say, look, as young people, I think you're missing out on this. Your music, one, is something that's very obvious, and some people in the room do it very well. Is there something that we're in front of us but we're not realising, and what would your advice to us be?
One of our recommendations actually is about partnering with local schools, and that's from any age, from like primary school, high school, all the way up to university. And one of the towns that we have looked at in more detail actually have a student art exhibition, and they've said that they've got loads of traction from that because obviously their families come to support, and they have it, I think it's about 6 days and varying times so that they can all attend, and they have like a lot of people attend. So I think definitely partnering with schools is something to look into more, and also that taps into engaging more young people from an earlier age as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I went to a meeting this afternoon, something called Hexham Youth Initiative, and they want to do something culturally within this arts town, and we need to support that, I think, as a group, and other such interested parties who you wouldn't normally go to in the first instance. That's very good, thank you.
Good. Anybody else? Okay, right, over to me. Right, there's somebody who's a dedicated 1980s person who will never ever leave the 1980s because it was the best place ever. I'm glad you mentioned it, and I'm into the vinyl and all that type of stuff. So a couple of things from me. So could we flick back to your recommendations?
Yeah.
Right, so may I suggest the following? I mean, I'm a report writer, so just, I think there's 4 recommendations in there, and could I ask, just it will help us just to differentiate what we see here. So, the marketing, absolutely, coordination, absolutely. The events, could you split that into 2? So there's the actual events, partnership, and all those types of things. And the one thing you kept mentioning all the time, timing, could you have that as the 4th part of your recommendation so we can differentiate between actual events and timing events, because those are 2 distinct things. So you quite rightly point out a heavily weighted calendar of events where we have fireworks, Spook Night and Christmas. And if you can come up with an answer of how to move those 3 events to other parts of the calendar, you're a better man than I am. But obviously I'm only joking, obviously we do have that. I mean, one thing we have done recently, and led by Councillor Grennan, is to have the music in the park and in the bandstand, and we've got in the summer now, because we used to have a hiatus in the summer, which was just an opportunity lost. So we have actually made some steps to try and spread that load. However, quite rightly, with your fresh eyes, you've identified that load needs to be spread further. Certainly, we have so much going on from fireworks into the Christmas time. Having January off is quite nice. However, I always think February is a missed opportunity where we could do something where we using the dark nights as a background to inspire a lightning parade. We have had a lightning parade type of thing. I think if we could point something in that way, we have a Festival of Flame, we've had that 1 or 2 times before, the Festival of Flame in maybe the February, where we're using the dark nights and we're using that as a stepping stone into the spring. Could I also ask you know, the point Stephen raised was about ownership, and that's really important. So when you're doing recommendations, and when I come from a profession here, it's like the, you know, it's the, you know, the who, the what, and he's making notes here. We make notes. The who, the what, and the when is really, really important. So if you could explain those and explain why you think, let's say, it should be the Hexham Town Council who should hold for example, the website. That might be the answer, but why do you think that? Is it because you've seen a good example from somewhere else, or is it somewhere else where they have a central point? And I'll make way for you to speak.
No, this is really interesting because as we said, we're kind of still working through our recommendations.
Yes.
And I think the lady over there made a really good point about being a bit nervous whilst it belonging to one person.
Yeah.
So if we were to kind of look towards a team of people,
yes.
In terms of that team, what do you guys think about it being a bit of a hybrid approach, so kind of half council, half community representatives?
So what we want from you is to what is the best, or what have you seen as part of your research to say, we have seen X in Y town, for example. So we can't give you that answer. Mm-hmm. You do the research and say, I have seen A in this town, B in this town, C in this city, whatever you want to do, and just give us some offer, and then we can look to see what is the best approach for us. So we can't give you the answer. We want you to give us your research, and then us to consider that answer to make that decision. So that's the way we want it. So the who, the what, the whens, why do you feel that? I think the point that's been raised quite a lot here has been about accessibility. Now, obviously everybody's quite heavy on electronics because it's easy to do and cheap, but actually reaching out to maybe those harder to reach people, you know, is there a solution there? Is it notice boards? Is there something else there? And I really did like the single branding. That is something I think that has been where we have struggled greatly over many years, is to have that single brand, you know, brand Hexham. I think we do have bits and pieces here and there, but I think a single brand, you know, if you really force that message, we can really work on that. But I think this is sensational. I think really well done. I think you've got your finger on all the right pulse marks on this, and just a big thank you from me and the rest of the town council for all your work. Will we be seeing you again, or?
Penny announcement will be on Friday.
So,
right. Penny Brennan's going to do something.
So Andrew the clerk and I are going on Friday for a much longer session, and then a report will come out, and then we can discuss it in full. But I'd just like to say what a complete and total pleasure it has been to work with you all. I think it's amazing that just very quickly, the process was extraordinary. It was like speed dating. So there were 40 students in the room at 5 different tables, and Andrew and I had to go and talk for a certain amount of time to each table. And then there was this quite complicated cross sections of people that, you know, CVs that we got, and then we'd say, well, we think that student might be interested, and then they elected where they're going to go, and there was a massive bit of alchemy happened, and we ended up with 8 fantastic students, all business students, but all from slightly different disciplines. So the balance of the team has been great. I know that team working is a really crucial part of A, getting results, but B, you have to demonstrate that as part of the work that you're submitting. If you need any testimonials about how great you are on the ground, please ask us. But we thought it would be nice to just give a little token of our thanks. And this has come from a shop which is in Back Street, and is part of our artists' quarter, I think that we like to call it. And just for the sake of those people here, not you because you'll get to see it in a minute, are aerial map key rings, and they are hand printed and designed, and they're off Hexham. So I have to say there's no escape. Every time you open your door, you will think of us, and that may or may not be a good thing. I don't know.
You'll all be on Hexham TV.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Right, you're free to go home
I just wanted to add as well, with the report coming out in the coming weeks, I think because we had it to condense it down here, it would be really good if any of you are really interested in this, please do read it.
Yeah.
The appendices, it's about 300 pages at the moment, so
Wouldn't go down.
yeah, you know, but just look out for it because it will give you a lot more detail. We've really condensed this down.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is the minutes of the last meeting, which was the 9th of February 2026. We will have permission to sign page 1, 2, 3 and 4. Permission to sign, please. Good. 7's over. We now go to item 8, which is to seek support for Love or Time as it explores with other councils, communities and relevant stakeholders the implementation of river rights throughout the River Tyne catchment. So I'm now going to invite Councillor John Ord so you should all have a piece of paper with the right to rivers, 2 pages. I'm going to invite John Ord to
Thank you.
present.
Thank you. I feel a little bit, what's those words?
Overruled.
Overruled. Or after the Lord Mayor, sure. Yes, I'd like to propose a motion, as Derek has read out there for me. It's actually a little longer than that, and if you look at the last 4 paragraphs, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, that's what we're seeking. Why we're seeking that and how we're seeking it is what I'd like to talk about now, if that's okay. Right, and you've had these papers now for 2 months, so you've had a chance to memorise them now, not just read them. But there's a growing realisation around the world and in the UK that the way we presently treat or consider nature and the rivers within it, the way we treat it as commodities to be exploited, it's failing. It's failing to protect nature and it's leading to its degradation and destruction. It's not a surprise that we're living through one of the biggest extinction periods in global history. It's the way that we treat nature that's caused that. An example of how the River Tyne has been treated, the North and South Tynes and all those rivers that flow into are not healthy. The Environment Agency says that 36% of that river system can be considered good ecologically. I don't think that's something we should be proud of, because 36% may be good, but that means 64% isn't. 64% of our rivers in Northumberland, one of the most rural counties in the country, are not healthy ecologically. Not one stretch of river in Northumberland can be considered healthy
chemically. Not one. Why is that? Well, there are three main pollutants. One of them is runoff from roads, which just gets washed into the rivers. Another is agricultural runoff, and that's controlled voluntarily at the moment. There's no control over what gets washed in from the roads, none at all. But what gets washed in from agriculture is up to the individual farmers to monitor and control. But another thing that adds to the general malaise of the River Tyne is that Northumbria Water regularly dumps sewage into it. The Victorians had a wonderful scheme to provide fresh water and to remove sewage from premises. And they built this system, and the fallback position for if it got overwhelmed was that it would be discharged straight into the Tyne. And that still happens. We're still using basically the Victorian system, and it's straight out into the Tyne. And I did a wee bit of research. Do you remember the heavy rain that we've all experienced lately? Once that had stopped, I checked on a sewage map that you can all access. I think I've mentioned it somewhere in... Well, no, I haven't. But Surface Against Sewage have produced a wonderful interactive map which shows you all of the sewage outlets and whether they have been discharging, for how long they've been discharging, and a brief history of the discharges of some of those sewers discharge points. And it's appalling. Even though the rain had stopped, some of the I think there were three, one actually in the Hexham area, which was discharging and had been discharging for 300 hours. Can you imagine how much sewage was washed into the Tyne because of that? Now it's only one of them. There's 100 or so, I don't know how many, there are hundreds of them up and down the Tyne in its catchment area. 300 hours. Anyway, you might think that, and following Dirty Business, have you all seen Dirty Business? Channel 4 documentary sort of film about the tragic death of a child who was playing on a beach. And the sewage had been discharged onto the beach. And she caught an awful illness, and she died. Now, I don't know anyone who's died because they've been swimming in the Tyne. I really don't. But I do know two people who got seriously ill. I'm not asking for the Northumbria Water to relinquish ownership of the water system that they have. I'm not asking for it to be taken back into public control. I don't think that would necessarily change things very much. What I am asking for is for all of us to look at our rivers from a different perspective. A brilliant read. You must try and all read this. It's brilliant. Robert McFarlane's book, Is a River Alive? It's a wonderful, poetically written book. Marvellous. And of course, he travels all over the world asking this question, and some countries have taken him up on that challenge and they've declared that rivers are alive. They're living things. They're living entities. Ecuador has even changed its constitution to bring rights of nature and rights of rivers into its parliament. It's actually changed the law, changed its constitution to do that. I don't think this government or this country would change the law. So that's not Love Our Tyne's aim. What it wants you to do is to think about the Tyne. If it's alive, and we talk about rivers being dead sometimes, why not talk about them being alive? They would have inherent rights as a living organism, as a living being. It would have rights. And if we accept that it has rights, this changes the dynamic of how we think about rivers. We can't just dump sewage into it every time it rains. We can't just dump agricultural runoff, and believe me, there's some poisonous stuff in amongst that. You just don't do it. You protect the river. You give it rights. Everyone who loves the river, and there's hardly anyone in this area who isn't affected one way or another by the river. It's carved out the geography of the area, it's provided jobs, it provides leisure, it provides recreation. Hardly anyone has been not affected by the river. So anyone who loves the river, individuals, anglers, rowers, swimmers, potential swimmers perhaps, landowners, water companies, they can all support this idea. Water companies can. It's not party political. It unites everyone in the catchment area around this central thing that's pivotal to our lives. And we can come together to work with the river rights and nature rather than against it. Now, love our time. Well, we're a community-based group. We're just concerned individuals who, following the examples of other concerned individuals around this country, like in Lewis for the River Ouse in Sussex, the River Test in Hampshire, the Itchen in Hampshire, their councils have agreed that their rivers should have rights, and they build thoughts about that into their council policies. And what eventually Love Our Time would like is that not only this council, but every single county council, district council, town and parish councils across the catchment will accept that the river should have rights and build whatever the rights are that we agree on into their policies. So that's our aim.
Okay.
One last thing?
Yeah.
So there's 4 aspects to what I'm asking for. First of all, that this council acknowledges the growing global movement of rights of nature, and it gives you a different framework so that we can think about our environment in a different way to exploitation. Number 2, there is a universal declaration of river rights, and what I would like you to do is to acknowledge the value of something like that. Now, as a minimum, the following are fundamental rights according to the Universal Declaration: the right to flow, the right to perform essential functions within the river's ecosystem, the right to be free from pollution, the right to feed and be fed by sustainable aquifers, the right to native biodiversity, and the right to regeneration and restoration. So I'd like you to acknowledge that there might be some value in those things. The third thing is to take on board that there's a case for maybe considering our interactions in the context of rights for rivers. And finally, you lend some support to the Love Our Time group as it works its way around every single 36, I think there are, parish councils, 5 district councils, if you get all the way across to the coast, and 2 county councils, no, more than that. Quite a number of county councils. There's going to be a huge input into this, and quite like your support. Notice that I'm not saying these are the rights I want you to accept. I'm not really saying that at the moment. I'm saying, could you please just consider this as being a valuable exercise, that it has some merit, and in a couple of years' time, maybe, when Love Our Town has done its work throughout the catchment, we'll come back to you and say, this is what ordinary people throughout the catchment want as the rights to the river. These are what they will be. They might very well be those few that I've read out, that the Universal Declaration thinks we should have. Or it might be a whole bunch of others. I don't know what the population's going to say. I don't know what businesses are going to say, or the councils that we talk to. But at some point within the life of this council, I'd like to come back and put a more solid proposal to you, saying these are the rights and will you accept them? I think I'm finished.
Right. Okay. So just so we're clear. So just on page 2, I'd like the full council to accept the River Tyne and its tributaries have rights. I'd like to fully support a other town group and propose that. So there's the 4 proposals there, just to make clear to everybody what is being put forward. So I'm now going to open it up for debate.
Well done, John.
Well, actually, no.
I just want to ask one question.
So you're basically moving the proposal here.
Yes.
So is there a seconder for the motion? So I'll take Tom. So Tom is the seconder. So we're now going into debate. Sorry.
Well done, John. We want the living river to the happiest place in Britain. One of the questions, how much does it impact? We've got people who exploit the river. How much do you think that's down to the simple nature of the area around here, with landowners and vested interests, that has created rivers that are 64% polluted?
I think I don't know if I'm going to answer your question here, Steve, so forgive me. Come back to me. I think landowners love the river. The couple that I've spoken to, they actually love the river. They think it's marvellous. They want to protect it for their salmon, for one thing. They want to look after it. And it's not that it's the whole culture. I wouldn't pick anyone out to say, you're responsible, you're responsible, you're responsible. It's the whole culture. The way we've been brought up since Victorian times. I'm the oldest here, so it's how the world has been since Victorian times, where you could treat it as a sewer, you could treat it as just the means to get rid of whatever you didn't want to. The Victorians imposed that on us due to rapid industrialisation and taking people off the land, forcing people off the land and into the towns, and something had to be done. So the river, although in the past, the distant past, it might have even been worshipped at one point. You have indigenous people now across the world who worship the rivers that they depend on. The Ganges, is that still its name? I don't know if it's changed. But the Ganges is worshipped as a god. People had respect for it, even if they didn't worship it. And that respect went in Victorian times, and I think we're still struggling to get it back. And this is an attempt to get back to a more harmonious working with nature. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
So I think this is a really important issue, because obviously you'll have a massive sentimental attachment to the time. You know, going back for, you know, I don't know how long. But there's a disjuncture, isn't there? So you have a sentimental attachment, you talk about how wonderful it is, how it's an absolute cornerstone of your culture, but you abuse it by dumping stuff in it. So I think that that process, the process that you're describing, is really important for addressing that, because quite a lot of the people who will profess to love the time will also be, you know, polluting it. And it starts a conversation. This is a conversation that needs to happen. So the fact that this group is going to go around all the parishes and talk to people is really important. And I think that strategically, that sentimental attachment to the river is a really important lever to actually get people to address what they're doing. Down the line, it would be fantastic whether it could be broadened out, and the North East Community Authority could embrace this in terms of the waterways within its control or area anyway. Domain is a better word. So I really applaud this, because although you said we're not asking you to do A, B, C and D, the point is that we're starting a conversation and making people think about their behaviour and their attitudes. Yeah.
I welcome it, because I think it helps raise the profile. But ultimately, we've got to engage with people. And I've been involved with the Wildlife Trust for quite some time, and I think we're recognising if we want to see nature's recovery, and that includes respect for rivers and what have you, it's about engaging with people and people owning and wanting to see things happen. And that's a really crucial thing about this. You can't have a small group, I mean, this sounds a great group, promoting rivers, great, but ultimately we need everybody to feel they have a right to have a good river near them, to have clean water. They have a right to have nature on their doorstep. They have a right to see birds which have been lost over the years. So I think that the crucial part is to make sure that this helps promote what I hope is further engagement with people. Yeah, because it's the people we need on our side to make a difference.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, John. Yes, I totally agree. I'd love the time to have bathing water status. Quite frankly, I stopped swimming up near Chollyford after people got quite ill in our group one summer, and I know it was very popular during COVID, but we kept on some wild swimming, and there was stuff in there, and it's not pleasant. So, obviously, my concerns with that then are. The river is a living entity, it's ownership, and it's ownership all the way along the banks, and then vested interest. I mean, you say they value the river more than the land, but actually that's not always true. The land is valued for food security reasons. And I know certainly that the climate strategy at County Hall was dropped back from 2030 to 2040 for nitrates, and that was specifically to do with farming and agriculture. So again, it's long conversations with owners. We live in a rural area that is agriculture dependent, and we don't own the river. To be honest, I can't see philosophically why anyone would own a river, but they do own bits of it, and you can't put certain things in, and there are vested interests on either side of it. So that's the conversations that need to be opened up to get to this level, this living river ideal.
Okay. Any other comments? Mike?
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, fully supportive of this. Just one thing, not just the wrong question. We've got the right for the river to flow, which is great, because I remember when the Core Bridge got flooded, obviously the Environment Agency had to step in, obviously do some work. So there's obviously, with increased flooding, there's always going to be works that will need to be done on various rivers to mitigate any flooding or other issues concerned, which means you're going to have man-made kind of man-made changes on that. I guess that's not in conflict with letting the river flow principle, is it?
So John will sum up at the end, so we'll leave that question. Is there any other concerns?
I fully support it. It's fantastic. With having a young family, like, I'd love them to be able to go swimming in the Tyne and whatnot. It's a great resource. Do we know what the cost would be of actually cleaning it up? It would be fantastic if, in our lifetime, if we could. Like, do we know, is there an action plan that we know needs to happen to do it? Like, is it?
Right, any other questions? Okay, so I'll just a couple of observations from me. I mean, there's three river Tynes. There's the North Tyne, the South Tyne, and the Tyne. I'm just conscious, like, of accuracy, you're just calling it the River Tyne. So for me, I struggle with that. I wish it was called the Rivers Tynes, or the Rivers Tyne. So I would love that to be clarified as to go, are you talking about North Tyne, South Tyne, and the Tyne? Because obviously when water's meet, it becomes the Tyne. So I'd really like that to be clarified as to the whole accuracy of that. I think just for the sake of accuracy here, I mean, we should remember that our rivers, or certainly the Tyne, is hugely in a better state than it was during the Industrial Revolution. During the coal that was being exported out the Tyne, all the heavy metals during like industrialisation and shipbuilding and all that. So the Tyne was a dirty place, and I don't think much lived in it for many decades. However, we have seen, with improvements, that the River Tyne has become a lot more healthy, and you can see that by obviously the fish that use the river, because obviously if it wasn't clean, they just wouldn't live there. So I just wanted to try and get a sense of balance here, and we are aware that actually when there is no floods and stuff, actually the River Tyne has been measured is fairly clean, which is so positive. But as you rightly point out, John, once runoff happens and floods and all those types of things, all the filth starts to go into the river and pollutes it. So we do have that seems to be where the problem lies, is to when it's like overflows and all that stuff is starting to go into the river and damages it. I mean, I've got to admit, I've seen wild swimmers in that river, and I've just thought, you couldn't catch me in there because it just didn't look great. So I'm very supportive of this. I think what we should remember is Hexham is only a very, very small player in this. The length of the river going through because democracy is all about territory and how far our remit is as a town council. So it is only the length of the river, which is only one shoal, is such that we have. And it may be maybe a mile long, like that the Hexham parish has it as such. But I think we are, I think it's a good start to actually come here first and start that conversation. So I'm very supportive of it, John. So I would now like you to just move your motion, and then we go to the vote.
Just
somebody else mentioned the motion, and I have a stinger.
I'll make sure I'm going to proceed. Could I think it was Simon.
Yeah.
You mentioned, have we got an action plan, or do we know how much it would cost? I don't know a figure. But there is an action plan, and I mentioned it on this paper, I think. It's the River Basin Management Plan, and it's produced by the Environment Agency. Really, if you can get your hands on that, it's not worth wrapping the chips in. There was another one produced for North Yorkshire, and a set of anglers took the Environment Agency to court. The judge described the contents as smoke and mirrors, and of course the angling agency won their case and said this is totally inadequate as a plan. It celebrated what had been happening in the past, and yes, actually things are better than they used to be during the darkest days of the industrial time, but don't swim in it, for God's sake, don't swim in it, don't go in it, don't plodge in it. I carry out a test on the river every year. I wear strong rubber gloves. I wash my hands afterwards, even though I sometimes find very little in the way of chemicals in it, because I generally go in the summer, so there's not been that much rain. But please be careful of the river and look out for
surface against sewage map. The surface against sewage map. It's information provided by the Environment Agency and the monitoring of all of these different outflows. But before you let your kids go in the water, don't let them plunge in it until they've seen that. It's not worth the risk. I don't know.
Right, okay?
Yes,
right,
I'll stop.
Right, that's it. Right, so we're now going to move, as per the rules of debate, I'm conscious of time as well, we are now going to go to the vote. So those in favour of that put forward by Councillor John Ord and seconded by Tom, those in favour? Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Right. Right, to receive an update on the Hexham's potential development sites. Anything new on Hexham Middle School? I don't think there is, but we're going to take that to the impending meeting with the County Council. Anything on the old bus station site? We were aware of some solar panels?
No, that was it, part of the three sites. It's
Ah,
not
yeah,
but
sorry,
we hoped it would maybe nudge DICE to do something. I'm still following up with head of planning, so another meeting on that. And before we go push for another section 215.
Okay, so nothing on the bus station, but we may bring that up at the NCC meeting. Toilets?
Yes, we've had an update on the toilets. So I followed up on this is the Wentworth toilets, because it was in the budget for 4 years ago now, I think. So I followed up Paul Jones, and he said that because they were going to check ahead of the budget actually, and they didn't get back. We meeting with Council May there before the end of March to discuss and hopefully agree the sequence of the facilities for improvement over each of the next 3 years, and will advise in due course. We desire to see this facility prioritising programme is noted. So again, I mean, it was in 3 years ago. It's obviously a lot of money went into opening up St Mary's, so it's clearly slipped down priorities. But it's that every March we should know more.
So with Council's permission, we'll add HMS bus station and toilets to the list to speak with NCC about, because that is just absolutely appalling that we've had no improvements on there. The police houses, well, we're aware that the work it continues. I keep having a look over the fence, and you know that they are doing the work there. The Union Workhouse, no, I've got nothing on that one. The Shambles, obviously there's just the car park to be done. Have we got a date for that at all?
No, we
did see one, but it might be soon anyway. The cycle path, obviously that's progressing.
Derek, I went to a meeting with Andrew on the 13th at Corbridge Parish Council, Nicola was there, and the planning team were there. They were talking about a section of, I think it was 400 or 800,000 pounds that they may have. They were talking about planting put in to go. The path finishes at the Corbridge roundabout and goes over and stops at the bottom of the bridge. We're talking about putting a path into the Corbridge train station. They don't seem to want to go for that, and they're talking about other options, doing something towards Riding Mill to connect to the A68 and Brindle, potential to do something on the Tyne Bridge over the river to Acomb. So there's a couple of things that are up in the air.
Interesting. Railway Buildings, Water Tower, I've got no news on that one. West End Methodist, so we're aware, but do you know exactly that? It's now for sale, is that correct?
It's about to
go for sale, yeah. So we'll keep an open channel with the West End Methodist. Obviously that's a great loss to if that goes up for sale. I know it's like heavily used by user groups, but not necessarily of the religious type.
Just for information, they've kicked out all the user groups.
Yes.
And they're doing some filming there, I believe.
Yes, that was.
So, I mean, the community centre is one of the beneficiaries of that, but it's all a question of perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So I think the last service is Easter. Is that correct?
No, the last service was last Easter.
last list. Old Robs and the Beale site. Other than a handful of rumours, I don't know of any more news on that, nor on Abbey House. Okay. Right, so forthcoming events. So the 1st of April we have our NCC and the Northumberland County Council and the Hexham Town Council meeting, where we have 1 hour to discuss various aspects. So what was the list? Do we have the list on the
The draft list has gone round, but it was to be agreed at the FNGP and then sent to NCC, so that they could prepare for it.
Right, okay. Is there anything, we're careful about timings and stuff we can do by correspondence? Is there anything, you've been circulated emails, is there anything want to be added or subtracted from that list? Obviously we need to focus on major things. Right, okay, we'll do that.
Can I just make a comment about that?
Yeah.
I mean, the list is quite long, obviously, and I think that we do need to be really careful, because if it's just concrete answers that we want, so when are you going to mend our toilet, refurbish our toilets, then we send that in advance and we say that we want a written answer to that. Because what we don't want is to squander our time when we're actually discussing either strategy or intention or those things that are much softer and cannot be nailed down, but we need to discuss them. So I think that's really key.
It is. Right,
so will it be a priority? Like we've asked us for like 3 priorities before. This is our main priority rather than scattergun approach.
Well, let's do that by correspondence just to see what exactly what our main items are, but we need to be very, very careful.
Can I just clarify? That will be decided by FNGP.
First.
Yeah.
So the FNGP will take that
next week. Next week.
Yeah. Good. Right. Right. Mayor's announcement. So I'm going to invite 1 or 2 people in on this. So we held a mayor's reception, and that went very, very well. Obviously welcoming the celebration of volunteering and community leadership. Thelma Brown and Sam Gilchrist awarded the steward and bailiffs, and they were very pleased with that, and it was all kept quiet and they didn't know, so it was good. Tom and Roger already spoke about the playground, so I was going to invite them to speak about that, but we've already done that, unless you've got anything more to add.
I'd say the only thing that I perhaps should have said when Rosie was here, the difference between the current plan and what's there at the minute is that under comp plan, the designer's advice, there's a little bit of a buffer, like a safety buffer around some of the items. So whereas at the minute if you're there and you've got a kid on the swing, there's quite a kind of like lethal, dangerous kind of area, kill zone, which is now being like rationalised down a bit, took sort of more towards the tree. So that's why there's our hands a little bit tied in terms of what extra provision can go in. It's quite packed, but with the non-negotiable is that radius around each of the items.
Tom, anything?
I think it was just dates would be quite useful to find for people. So we've got the pre-start meeting on Thursday ahead of starting on site week commencing the 30th of March, so that's in 3 weeks' time. And then on site for approximately 10 weeks with a view to completing week commencing the 1st of June.
Excellent, thank you very much.
Just so if we communicate that out on our website.
And we're going to do so Tom, Roger, if you could do a bigger press release on this, we need you to get a bigger press release. Obviously we've done the first blush of that this is going to happen.
I can just see what the current has in this week and see what the gaps are.
Right. I'm going to bring Suzanne, so I know she's desperate to leave. So I'll bring you in to do the multi-user games area update.
So it opened last October, the Priory Play Zone, but a lot of the signage wasn't up. and the promos didn't happen immediately. We had a change of staff at County Hall on it as well, which didn't help. But the signage is going up now. There was a bit of sort of kickback in half term because it wasn't open. It had been stuck down for a kind of 2-hour token on the new system that Louise, the head of the Priory, hadn't yet got to grips with. So she has now. The team have been brilliant. Part of the signage has gone up, the new QR code will go up. Now our big commitment here is that the town council, because our badges on the gate, our buy-in is kind of it's part of our infrastructure in a way, it's part of our parks. But also we wanted community use, and residents were rightly quite cross about it. But we had a great meeting last week with partners and Keita from Youthy and people like that who buy into this as well. And we've extended the hours, so from sort of 3 o'clock till 7 o'clock after school in the summer, so that kids can get there and have a good play before. I think there's a couple of sessions booked out for rugby and football, and then at weekends and on the holidays it will be a block of 12 till 6, so 6 hours. And obviously people can check if it's booked out after, and maybe they don't leave if it's not booked out, but obviously courtesy, if it is booked out then they do leave. But those hours at the moment are our kind of testing point, and we'll review them after the summer with the steering group on that. But I'm really pleased, and the gate will automatically ping open at those hours, and you will be able to get out as well, so you don't need a code to use it for community use. So I'm really pleased that this facility is benefiting the school, a really amazing school, and the community, as should really be throughout Hexham.
Yeah, so just to add to that, I think there's sort of like 3 customers as such as or 3 user groups, I say. There's the school, who will obviously use it during school hours, and obviously their children are need to be protected because obviously they're from the primary school. After that, you then have those opening hours, as Suzanne mentioned, that's 3 hours for community use, and then later on there's paid hours, so there are going to be those user groups who actually pay to do various activities. The cost is low, but the money from that is to help with future maintenance, because the service has a 10-year guarantee, so and need repaired in time. So I think it was a good meeting, and we did squeeze out as much free time for the
now, as we can, and it may increase. But the thing is as well to point out the community groups as well get a lower rate, so people like we can brought in as well. And so it's not for profit. It is, as you say, these maintenance costs. It's a beautiful facility. It's floodlit. It's clean. It's people should be proud to use it. It's otherwise what you end up with is, as Kathy Keedy said, a lot of tennis courts that were put in the 1970s and 80s that are just left to rack and ruin. So you do need an element of not profit but maintenance. But we're really pleased with the new hours. So please do go down and have a good kick about.
What's the lease with?
The lease, well, it's NCC land, but it's leased to the school. Is that?
So any comms information you want to give?
Comms? Oh, just that they've been rather good with the Sele Park and the arts, town and the culture stuff as well, and the talking bench, as I mentioned earlier, has been completely welcomed into Hexham, so I was quite surprised by that. So yes, we've got 2,500 followers now. It's really gone up, and so please do share posts, and any councillors who want to put stuff on there, anything, please just send it through. And
Suzanne, do you want to tell everyone about the amazing app that we saw today?
Oh, yes, an amazing app.
I think we're going to bring you in.
Oh, me?
Yeah,
oh, gosh.
you and Mike.
So we'll bring so are you going to
yes, I'm going to leave, but
so the next thing we're going to mention was the food bank thing, so I was going to bring you and Mike in for that.
It's very kind, thank you. So a group of us went down to the food bank just to kind of take Sam and I off getting the bailiff award, and it was really fascinating trip. They do much more than just giving out food. There's a whole welfare advice section to it as well. And one of the things that was really exciting to see was their use of data and the way that they're targeting their resources and helping the most vulnerable in the community. And they've got an app, which I think is a national app, but basically if you log on, when you're going to the supermarket, it will tell you what local food banks are needing in terms of supplies. So you can find the bin and you can buy the things that they need, and then you'll be able to put them into the hopper thing.
Oh.
So recommend everyone downloading it and doing their...
What's the name of that app?
Bank of Food.
Bank of Food.
Bank of Food. Okay, right, I've never heard of that before, so that's good. But thank you for anything that you got.
No, it was, I think one of the things was I think they get funding for about 20%, but 80% actually comes in from the people's donations.
Yeah.
So it's very consistent. And then I managed to talk to them about, I think they've got three vehicles, so they've grown, and I'm actually looking at potentially getting an electric vehicle to work for them as well. But very well run operation.
Yeah.
Very good. Good. I'll mention just because it wasn't on TV before there. So today is the 265th anniversary of the Hexham riot of 9th of March 1761, where more than 50 people were killed when the local populace came into conflict with the York militia, and the riot act was read in Hexham Marketplace, and a day of infamy took place then. It's something that is a major, not just a local issue, but it should be a national known piece of knowledge that time seemed to have forgotten about, because Peterloo in Manchester regularly, the massacre, Peterloo is regularly commented upon, but the Hexham riot was much larger and had much more casualties and deaths than that in Peterloo. So yeah, just I think that's something that we should take on a bit and try and publicise a bit more. I think as a town. I'll bring in John, and I'll bring in Peg.
Just I think it's worth noting that the so-called riot started because people were protesting about conscription, which I believe was done by lottery. So they objected to that, and they would not disperse. So the commander of the Yorkshire regiment declared a riot and gave them licence to shoot.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting one because it was the first time that the Riot Act had been read, so that's an historic thing. It's also one of the few occasions when landowners and the peasantry were in accord, because the landowners didn't want to lose their workers by them being sent off to war, and obviously the workers didn't want to be sent off to war. Yes, and the York militia were then known afterwards as the York Butchers. So it was a bloody affair, and they hunted people who had injuries down in the villages, so it was gruesome.
Gruesome, yeah. If you've never read the book, it's a read. It is quite a fascinating read. Yeah, so
is there any reenactment societies that we could work with?
We have had a reenactment some 20 or 25 years ago, which was fascinating to watch.
Not a literal reenactment, that is pretty good.
So it has happened, but I think, as I say, I think we could maybe pursue that and have a look. But yes. Right, so our next item was the Arts Town Culture. I think, Stephen, you want to mention?
I've just had an idea. We went to a presentation at Queen's Hall, and some of the councils here were represented, and came out with some real good ideas. There's a competition there. The winner gets 3 million, there's 250,000 for the two runners up. So it's based around the Reavers. So I looked up the Reavers, and I'm now an expert. I think read it for an hour and a half. But what I thought might be a good idea, if we're talking about culture and heritage and everything, and some of the names your heritage is connected with the Reavers. The new housing estate that will be built on the middle school, I think it would be a great idea if there was a celebration in terms of names. So if you had, for example, 1 Armstrong Walk.
They do have an Armstrong.
Sorry?
We do have a street called Armstrong.
Armstrong Walk.
And we have Charlton also, so it has...
Let's not dig into the detail. The concept of...
Well, we have two Armstrong streets at the same time.
Well, Armstrong Walk was the concept of him walking first man on the moon.
Okay. Oh, right.
I thought that was quite clever.
Yeah.
Obviously, at the top, yeah. Something like that would celebrate the history of and heritage of Hexham, and would add to the momentum of the purpose of what we're trying to do in terms of who we are, what our backgrounds is, a celebration of people, their heritage, and our international flavour that these groups of individuals being dispersed around the world. And it's something that people might want to celebrate, and something very relevant to Hexham. I think it would be a good idea.
Yeah. Well, just obviously, Highford Park, Ormond Park is named after all the river names. So we've got Armstrong and Charlton, blah blah blah, Robson.
Yeah, I mean, the school side could equally be names of previous headmasters or headmistresses of the school.
Right, we're not going to get into that, so go on then. Right, okay, right, we're going to get into that. Conscious of the time, we're going to move on. So the next item is the list for payments. So if we can just go through that, page 1, any questions? Page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. Any comments on that? It's then another page 1, another page 2, page 3, and then there's a bank reconciliation. Okay. Good. All right. Just the reports. 17th of December 25. The F&GP minute. Page 1 and 2. Planning and infrastructure. 3rd of February 26. Page 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And the community engagement of the 22nd of January 26, page 1 and page 2. And then our final item is correspondence.
Just our usual now, CVA, the rural bulletin.
So I'll just on that just I had one telephone call today on the you'll recall I raised, or you may have read the article I raised with the County Council that the Ashton train line, the County Council has contributed some 49 million toward a 336 million railway line that goes to Ashton, etc. And that's just the current cost, that those will rise. And that those that travel from Ashton into Newcastle, which is 19 miles, pay £2.60, whereas those travelling from Hexham into Newcastle, which is 22 mile, can pay anything from £9, £4, £5, all sorts of pounds, depending on when you book your ticket. But certainly you pay more for an equivalent distance on equivalent trains on an equivalent line. So I held a meeting today with Corbin Hughes of the North East Combined Authority, which is the mayoral authority. He's the transport lead, and it was him, Glenn Sanderson, the leader of the council, and myself. So I just explained. Tobin actually lives in Hexham, so that's quite handy. So he understands the line. So obviously I was just explaining the position, that the Tyne Valley line is not being treated in the same way as the Ashington line. There was an explanation as to that was a new train line, so there was a business case put forward, and it was integrated into the metro system, etc. But I've asked that we lobby the North East Mayor that the Tyne Valley should be treated with the same equity as the Ashton line, and you know, can they, as a thing called the pop card, which is used for on the metro system, and you can actually use that on the Ashton line. One suggestion was maybe could the pop card be rolled out, say, across the Tyne Valley for the Northumberland stations, you know, you see how it was sort of all the way into Newcastle. You know, how could that be operated? Could that be thought of as an option? You know, what would be the capital cost of the pop card machines being put in the stations, and then the operating costs, etc. So we do get a similar treatment of customers and train goers as those on there. So I'll keep you posted on that, but I'm not letting that drop. I think that's a really important thing for us going forward, and I'll take that to the Northumberland County Council the Tynedale Community Partnership, that meeting that we have in April. So there we go. Is that okay? There we go. Right, lean over.